So the last episode of the week of Eastenders was of Phil. It was an all Phil episode of him and his experience in the mental health unit. I've been dragging my feet reviewing it because I didn't feel like I have the capability to talk about this subject, but it's Eastenders, so I'm still going to review. So sit, chill, vibes, and listen to me ramble. And if you're feeling the vibe, make your only hat lean to the side. And if you're Oh, Phil, it's like this is how his first day started, and I just really felt for him. I want to start off with, I want to commend Eastenders because they do this very often where they talk about certain storylines to show us the public how the person may feel, how they express it, what their emotional mental health will be like, how they overcome certain situation, whether it's about mental health, whether it's about sexual abuse, whether it's about alcoholism, drugs abuse. Like there's so many different subjects and topics that Eastenders goes through like on a yearly basis, and I just love the fact that they consistently do a really good job. Not only that, they do their research, they speak to people who's actually experienced such a thing, they speak to professionals as well to make sure they don't get the story wrong or misconstrued. So I just want to commend Eastenders for that. As we know, Phil was suicidal. The last episode we saw him before he went to the mental unit, he was attempting to take his life. Obviously, at the end, Nigel and Linda is the one that talked Phil out of it and also called some professionals to come and get Phil. Phil decided on his own accord that he's going to go with them so he can get help. With that, so his first day to his 12th day, according to the episode, he was not having a great time. He was very sad. He was very low. He was very depressed. Obviously, the pills or the medication that the doctors were giving him hasn't kicked in just yet. So he was still experiencing all the downfalls that he was experiencing before he even came to the institution. What this episode showed me when it comes to mental health or people going into the unit, etc., is that you need to trust the process. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't just feel better instantly once they give you a pill. You got to feel better within yourself outside of medication as well. So they had different things like, for example, of breathing exercises, groups to express and, talk about your feelings with others. They had the colorings, the puzzle and all of that stuff. Not too sure how the puzzle and the coloring works, but each their own. Everyone is different. Maybe it's like a thing for them to do to keep, you calm or to keep whatever in your head out. There's different things. So what this episode did tell me, or what I understood, is there's a process and you got to trust in it and you got to participate. So when Phil first came, he wasn't really up for participating in any form of activities with anyone. Again, he was still very low and depressed. He did meet this guy. I don't remember this guy's name, or this guy met Phil, should I say. Phil again was very aggressive and angry and telling him to leave him alone and get out of his room, etc. But this guy was a bit persistent, telling Phil that he was just like him and he knows exactly what it is that Phil is going through. At first, Phil was actually turning his nose down at the process. He was also, I would say, mocking it. But the guy who, I forgot his name, was also mocking it as well. I think that's why Phil started to feel comfortable to be around him or to even slightly befriend him, because it's like something that's familiar to Phil, an older gentleman that lived the life that Phil kind of did. So with that, they kind of had a bond. As you can see, they kind of had a bond which made Phil, I would say, soften up or make his experience easier. So him finding a friend in the institution made things slowly get easier for Phil. Now Phil is able to feel more free due to the fact that he has this friend. And when I say free, I really do mean it loosely when it comes to Phil. But he was able to express because he has some form of familiarity in this institution with him. He went out of his way to go get a beer for this guy, as Phil can go in and out of the unit because he turned himself in so that he didn't have that much restriction like other patients would. The result of Phil's friendly gesture of bringing the beer for the guy went south. This guy tried to use the canned sharp objects to, off himself and take his life. Phil is the one that found his body. And then after that, Phil just got really low and down and depressed. And I think it made Phil think. Although Phil was on time and he was able to save this man's life, obviously shouting for help, I think Phil started to think about what he basically did to his family and friends. The fact that he tried to take his own life and he gave them that fear and terror, just like this man who he barely knows gave him. So I think it started to make Phil think about what he's done to other people, and not to say how selfish he was trying to take his own life, but just how his action affected those that actually love him. Now, I don't want to say that experiences saved Phil. Like, it will be a bit morbid to say someone trying to take their own life saved Phil. However, that experience and that realization that Phil got from that experience helped him loosen up, I would say, and made him participate in the activities that they had in the mental unit, meaning he followed the process. He started to follow the process. As you can see, he's sitting in a circle. He's joining a group to have a conversation. So with Phil's expression, he just felt like he was a dinosaur. Obviously, he's from a time when a man should be a man. A man doesn't cry. A man doesn't show his emotions. So he was just finding it difficult that he's becoming an older man. He's unable to fight. He's feeling low and depressed. And again, with this ideology that he had of what a man should be or what he was taught, he kept carrying it and it wasn't helping him. So this process definitely made him realize that it's okay for a man to cry. It's okay for a man to express himself. It's okay for a man to have emotions. Once he realized that, I feel like, he started to slowly, come out of that shell, that bubble, and to accept that the world has changed. The world is not what it used to be, how he grew up, and it's okay for him to feel the way he does. After a month of being in the unit, Phil was able to actually finally go because the doctors feel like he was ready to leave. The doctors feel like he had enough techniques and enough loved ones and family to help him further his process of healing his mind and his heart. Now, with that, it just shows me that once Phil literally let go and followed the process and expressed himself and showed who he truly is and how he really feels, things started to get better for him mentally. So again, I'm just saying what I saw from this episode is that if you're feeling low and you're going to get help, which is a great thing to do, trust the process. Don't fight against it because it could really help you, or at least give you some form of insight. As you know, the ending of the last episode of Eastenders before this one, Billy, Lexi, Linda and Nigel came to the unit to see Phil, to see how he's doing, see how his mental health is, because they want to speak to him. And obviously the doctor in the booth was like, he's gone, he's discharged himself, he's not here no more. Said, I think I know where he is. It turns out Phil went to his mum and dad's graveyard. So Phil's experience in the graveyard was interesting to me. So obviously he put down flowers and a card that he actually drew for his mum in the unit because it was going to be her birthday. And then he had a conversation with his father. Obviously he's also dead. Now, I don't know, fans will know that Phil had a horrible experience with his father. His father was extremely abusive. So the conversation he had with his dad was basically like, all the doubts and the fear and things that you put in me, I'm actually going to let it go now. I'm no longer going to carry it with me. He said it doesn't mean I'm going to forgive you. You don't get that much, but it just means I don't want to end up like you. His specific words were overgrown and forgotten about. He doesn't want to end up like his dad. So again, that's just him letting go of something that was hindering him mentally, physically. So good on Phil. Like, again, it was sad, good to see. It was just really emotional, to be honest. Linda, Nigel, Billy and Lexi, they found Phil. Obviously, Lexi comes and runs in her granddad's arms. Phil instantly apologizes to her. He apologizes to all of them. And he says thank you to Linda for obviously finding him in a state and helping him get to the unit, which was just so nice. Then after he stopped to have a conversation with Nigel, asked Nigel how is he doing, obviously because we know he has dementia. You know, Nigel says he has his good and bad days. And Phil said, you know what, I will help you, but I will also need your help. Acknowledging that, you know what, he's not fully well and he's now willing to accept taking help from other people. So it just really shows that last month Phil really did grow, and I'm now excited to see the new Phil that comes. Oh, look at that. How sweet. The theme song at the end was so interesting. Fans know when that song plays, it's usually because like a character's leaving for good or, you know, someone's passed away. So for them to play that at the end of this one, how I interpret it is the old Phil is gone and the new one's in. That's how I interpret it. Like all the old baggage that he had, he's now leaving behind him and he's revisiting the cast as a new man. That's how I see it. It honestly is beautiful. Honestly, this episode really did pull on my heartstrings. Again, I'm not a professional. I don't know how I could help anyone with mental health. I've gone through mental anguishes myself, but to be able to help someone or talk about it, no, I'm not really there. However, I just love what Eastenders did with this episode. I loved how they used Phil to tell this story. And now I'm just curious to see how Phil will fit back into Albert Square and where his place will be. So that is it. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Please like, subscribe, give me a little comment, and I'll ramble to you guys next week. Bye.
And if you're feeling the vibe, make your body hot, lean to the side.